Hello bookworms, so another book review from me, and I want to review a book that I've been reading called Geoff Thompson's Fear. There we are. Geoff Thompson's Fear, the Friend of Exceptional People. So Fear, the Friend of Exceptional People. So it's written by a guy called Geoff Thompson, and I would say it is a primer about fear and what happens when we are afraid, how to deal with the panic, how to deal with those feelings of overwhelm, and how to get past it. Now, Geoff Thompson, why is he qualified to talk about fear? I got to say a little bit about Geoff Thompson, and I'll actually read the thing on the back. Geoff Thompson is a BAFTA-winning writer. He's written 40 books, published in 21 languages. He's a multi-award winning screenwriter and acclaimed playwright. He was invited into the prestigious Royal Court Young Writers Group and author of hundreds of articles, many published in national magazines and broadsheets, including The Times. So I came across Geoff Thompson years ago as a martial artist, and he's a guy who basically transformed himself from working in a factory where he was really unhappy, in a marriage that he was not happy with, and just feeling that he was being bullied. So what he decided to do was he took up a martial art and excelled in it, but also what he decided to do was go and become a bouncer in one of the clubs in I think it's was it Leeds? No, one of the clubs in, oh god, I've forgotten where it was now. It could have been Sheffield, I think, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's one of those kind of clubs where if you don't have a weapon, they might give you one. So he worked on one of those as a bouncer and learned not about fighting so much, but about how to handle fear. And he really does talk about fear as being this kind of thing that turbocharges your reactions, because it is all about adrenaline and seeing the difference between fear and panic and the adrenaline rush and how to deal with it. And obviously, the adrenaline rush is important because back to 10,000 years ago, if there was a bear that went by or a tiger, you have to go into action quickly. But now the fear holds us back. So it's that fear of, am I good enough? Am I as good as my neighbour? He's got a Porsche 911 and I've just got a Nissan. That means I'm rubbish. And so the fears are not really real in that sense. They're not, the fear thing, the adrenaline is not what it was for. It was for real threats. So he basically went to the top of the martial arts world. He ended up getting invited by people like Chuck Norris to do seminars. He wrote books, and eventually he wanted to move on. So at every stage he found that he had to move on and something was holding him back. So this book is, like I said, I think this is a primer about fear. It's really easily written. There's no big studies, and I think anybody could read this. A 15-year-old could read this and get something out of it, or anybody who's much older. And what I found was initially when I read this book, I thought this is really kind of easy going. I mean, what am I going to learn out of this? But what I found was when I gave up my kind of arrogance about that and just read it, there were loads of reminders that I got, and it reminded me that actually there are so many things that you could do to deal with your own fear. And we all have fear of whatever it is, either, and his particular fear was fear of physical confrontation, but your fear might be something like, oh, I'd like to play a musical instrument, but I'm too old. And so you rationalize it. And he breaks down all these things in a really good way. He starts off, one of the things is about talking about a few home truths. And I'll just read them. As long as you continue to learn and grow, fear will never go away. So this is the other thing, that fear is always going to be there, no matter what. It's always going to be there. It's learning to be comfortable with fear and be comfortable with the fact that fear is there and just handling it. The only way to overcome the fear of doing something is to go out and do it. Most people don't want to hear that. One of the best ways to feel better and get stronger is to go out and do it. Again, take action, go out, do it. Everyone feels fear, especially in unfamiliar territory. Well, everybody knows that. And he has interviews at the back where he has an interview with, you know, the people that dealt with the SAS, you know, rescue thing that happened years ago, back in the 70s. People who are in the army, a couple of boxing trainers. And by the way, this is not just about people who want to deal with violent confrontations. It's just about anything in life where you feel fear. He has this great mantra of, I'll handle it. I'll handle it. Whatever comes up, I'll handle it. And I love that. And that's something I'll probably take away from it. So no matter what it is that you fear, at the end of it, the idea is that I'll be able to handle it. And the worst case scenario would be that I won't be able to handle it. But you know what? That's fine, because he also talks about, you know, doing things in chunks, small things, and the fear pyramid. So starting off with the things that you fear less, like it might be like spiders or something, and then going up and then up, and it might be the next, it might be public speaking, the next it might be writing a book, next it might be something else, and building up in steps. So he doesn't talk about going into anything in a big oneer. So he talks about gradually increasing things. I love this thing. So he talks about the comfort zone and the comfort zone increasing. So he talks about, similarly, a shop floor worker in a factory does not expect to go straight to company chairman, but he might go in very steady steps from labourer to machinist, then to shop floor foreman, to senior foreman, then management, and later to company chairman. So expand the comfort zone, find your feet, become orientated with the new altitude, and then expand again. If the doubts about your ability to handle it come flooding in, tell yourself that you can and will handle it. Risk is the cavernous hole that lies between those that dream and those that do. If there were no risks, there would be no point. Everyone would have everything they wanted. So that's all about this idea that between not doing something and success, you know, there are waves. It goes up and down, and you have to acclimatize. And by the way, he writes this in a very personal way. So that was a bit that I explained that was just very kind of matter of fact, but he talks about it in a way that, you know, he goes through lots of situations where he's kind of had to deal with risk, and it's great the way he does that. What does he do? Yeah, so there are loads of ways to deal with it. So he talks about strategies, planning to venture into a threatening situation, having a game plan, coping with anticipation of failure, the worst case scenario. A lot of simple, basic things, enlisting the help of those who are sympathetic, having mentors, talking to them, and again, finding alternatives to dealing with the fear. He talks about the inner opponent, and this is a big thing about it, is dealing with that inner opponent, that inner dialogue that's always going on, or, you know, talking to you. I have my own name for it. I've got Radio Nadim. Other people, he calls it Mr. Negative, but it's always negative. It's always trying to talk you out of something. And so left to its own devices, the mind can be a self-detonating time bomb of negativity that will spiral you down into ever-increasing misery. Dealing with the inner opponent is firstly about understanding that everyone has an inner opponent, though very few come to terms with them. So he gives a great story about a wrestler that is supposed to go from Glasgow down to London to meet a wrestler, and at each stop he kind of starts talking himself out of it, and finally he gets off the train at Birmingham, and the guy phones him and says, what happened? You're supposed to be here. He goes, I'm sorry mate, you beat me at Birmingham. And so he talks about the inner negative talker, or radio, whatever I call it, Radio Nadim. And you know, that's a thing that's been talked about for years. Even the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, talked about the greater jihad. So that there were some soldiers who'd go out on a war. They'd gone out to fight. There were people with their arms cut off and things like that. And he said, well, we've been to the minor jihad, the lesser jihad. Now we have to deal with the inner, with the greater jihad. And what he meant was we're dealing with our own inner selves, our own inner mind, that inner dialogue. So I mean, a lot of these things are not. You've probably heard of them before. He talks about exposure therapy. He talks about exposing yourself to certain things, planning ahead, getting active, practice. And he's a martial artist, remember, and he's a martial artist who then expanded out of karate because he thought there needed to be more. So he learned, even became a boxing coach, a wrestling coach, and did that within small pieces of, just a small amount of time. Yeah, success is not how you feel, but how far you have gone. And by the way, these are not just three slogans. He talks about it, and I could definitely see this book being something that you'd want to read again and again. Talks about the fear pyramid. So he's got an example of the fear pyramid there, and how you go up to it, and then maybe even and definitely sitting down planning. So if somebody's got a fear of spiders, you maybe start off with looking at pictures of spiders, then watching a spider up close, then it may be touching the spider with a stick, and then eventually getting to the point where you pick up a spider. You know, if it's, he talks about joining a boxing club, but definitely I could talk about, I'd like to learn to play an instrument, something that I've always wanted to do, never really got around to it. Even now I'm thinking, I'm a bit old for it now, but you know, he talks about a boxing club, and he gives you the stepwise thing. So maybe talk to people who play instruments, watch a few videos, go watch a lesson, take a few lessons, and then actually maybe block a few lessons. So, and then this talks about rewards, giving yourself of incentives for these. I mean, it's good stuff. He talks also about the challenges of overcoming your fears. When you do have some success, you're going to have people who wish you would stay in the same place. A lot of people aren't happy with that, because in a way it's that sense that you don't need me anymore because you're now doing better, so you don't need me anymore. Or, oh, you used to be around all the time when you didn't need me, why don't you need me now? And he actually is quite, you know, sympathetic and compassionate about that, and really he says it's about communication, talking to these people and explaining to them that you know, it's like you might need crutches for a little while, but when your leg is healed, you don't need those crutches anymore. And it doesn't mean that those people are crutches. You know, you explain that you have love for them and respect for them, but you know, and you thank them for all the support that you give. But you know, sometimes you do want to go on. But and he's able to take these things from his own personal example of the martial arts, where he's got to a very high level. His writing, which is again taken from a high level. Remember, Geoff Thompson's a kind of from a working class background. And he said there were so many people that said, "Why are you writing? You know, this is rubbish. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. Who do you think you are? You know, you're becoming a big hoity-toity Ponzi guy. You know, writing." And he said that those were, and he gives those examples. There's a thing here about visualization, and he talks about visualization as well. They did a study where they had people who were doing a sport, but actually people who were practicing the sport, and other people who were just visualizing. And believe it or not, people who visualized for a month actually did better than the ones who were practicing the sport for a month. Now that doesn't mean he's definitely says, look, that doesn't mean that you don't practice. The two go hand in hand, but these are things that can definitely enhance your practice. So you still have to practice. But yeah, so what can I say? That's about 4. I usually do these in a oneer. As you can see, I don't have any kind of breaks when I do these reviews. So it's whatever I can sort of remember. But this is a book that I will most likely have around. I will read it again. And I think it's one of those books you could read a couple of paragraphs and it would give you some inspiration and about dealing with fear and where you're stuck and where you've suddenly become inactive. So that's Geoff Thompson, Fear the friend of exceptional people. He's, like I said, this guy has written about 40 books, and he's just prolific. And I think he's got to that point where when he started on his fear journey, he just wanted to be in control of himself. He just wanted to get on and just be able to do things and not be so scared all the time. And you know, when you read his life story, he's done that. He's gone from being afraid of physical confrontation to dealing with that, to moving beyond that, to dealing with, you know, expanding himself in terms of what he could do in terms of his writing. And actually, when I read about him now, he's into the more kind of spiritual thing now. So anyway, Geoff Thompson, Fear, the friend of exceptional people. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be here for the next one. And thank you, Nasser, for just carrying on with these reviews. It's been inspirational because I wanted to just give up, but you know, you've inspired me to actually do a few more. Take care. Bye.